Good afternoon and welcome to this month's show. I'm Luke McCormack. During today's show, we will discuss critical issues facing government and industry leaders in data analytics strategies and technologies at the edge. With me on today's show are Ms. Eileen Vidrine, Chief Data Officer, U.S. Air Force, Mr. Sanjay Gupta, Chief Technology Officer, Small Business Administration, Ramesh Menon, Chief Technology Officer, Defense Intelligence Agency, Cameron Sherry, Vice President and Chief Technology Officer, Dell Technologies Federal, Kaladar Varangante, Senior Fellow and Vice President, Office of the Chief Technology Officer at Equinix, and Dr. Melvin Greer, Chief Data Scientist at Intel. Well, this is certainly a timely subject. There's a lot of data out there being collected, a lot of data being computed. Needs to be done securely, needs to be done timely. A lot of things to talk about today. Eileen, let's start with you. How are things going at the U.S. Air Force? I can't imagine with all these embedded systems, et cetera, that there's lots of data and technology being analyzed at the edge.
Well, I think it's a really exciting time to be at the Department of the Air Force because today we're a department with two military services, both air and space forces, and we're working together to really drive and fuel data innovation. One of the first initiatives that we did when I stood up this particular organization was we put together a self-service data platform to empower our airmen and guardians the capability to do self-service data analytics. And today, that is just growing each and every hour. So any airman or guardian can, at the speed of relevancy, log on and use data and current state tools to inform their decision-making process from tactical to strategic. It's a pretty exciting time.
Tools and techniques that are available to the, sort of that end user now, incredible explosion, tectonic shift in capability there. Sanjay, how about at the Small Business Administration? I know there's a whole lot of information that's being pushed out there. Tell us about the state of the state.
Yeah, good afternoon, Luke, and thank you for having me back on your show.
My pleasure.
Always fun to be here. Yes, I mean, data is what I call is the currency of the digital world. And why that is important is because increasingly we are leveraging data to drive either decision-making, and we're using data in terms of predictive analytics, we're using data in terms of prescriptive analytics. Of course, we've always been using data in the sort of the traditional formats of reporting, as it's described as descriptive and diagnostic analytics. So at the SBA, we have continued to use all four types of analytics. Clearly, we are less in the predictive and prescriptive analytics arena, more in the traditional descriptive and diagnostic analytics arena, but we are certainly seeing an increase going into the predictive and prescriptive side. So for example, in the last year and a half, obviously, we have had an explosion of data that we at the SBA have had to deal with. And so we've increasingly been relying on prescriptive and predictive analytics, meaning specifically we're using algorithm-based decision support systems for our credit processing, credit risk monitoring, some of the other loan programs, and being able to leverage data in a more rich and a more holistic manner. And certainly this is, I think, a trend that's going to continue to grow from my perspective.
The timing is great to really enable and unlock that capability for every small business owner out there. No question about that. Ramesh, how about a Defense Intelligence Agency? I can't imagine the dearth of data that you are collecting from a variety of resources that you're giving your analysts the ability to analyze real time.
Good afternoon, everyone. As most of you know, we are the foundational military intelligence, and our goal is to prevent strategic surprises to the country. And we work across multiple collection methodologies. We work with our partners and allies around the world, and the reports we produce go to the Joint Chief of Staff, to the Congress, to our combatant commanders. So data is very important, but more important is the trust and the validity of the data, right? I mean, we need to make sure, because the decisions we make from the data is important, and we have been doing a fairly good job over many, many decades. Now, what we are seeing is we are extending the value of this data and integrating that seamlessly into our mission space, both mission planning and mission operations. So we are starting to look at areas like augmenting human intelligence with things like artificial intelligence. So these data will become very important as we start looking at creating future capabilities with AI and other capabilities to move capabilities to the edge.
No question about it, being able to really enhance the richness of that data and do those high-end analytics, super important. And let's face it, when bad actors are in there trying to get into our environments, they're not trying to do that to look around and see how cool our environments are. They're after the data, right? I mean, that's the fact of the matter. Cameron, you're in a unique situation there where you're able to stripe across all these different environments, see it from a multi-agency perspective. What are you seeing out there?
Yeah, Luke, thank you and good afternoon. And what a great esteemed panel. I tell you, these things are always humbling a bit, Luke. There's a couple of key trends we're seeing that are weaving through this data strategy, data management conversation. First and foremost, the first theme we're seeing is visualization of data. We're finding, Luke, that in the modern age, it's kind of fascinating. And I know you know this, my friend, from running one of the largest civilian agencies out there from a CIO perspective. Spreadsheets aren't going to cut it anymore as we move forward, right? Getting data into data cubes and spreadsheets and the synthesis that we used to use of old, we really have to shift into a more visual context. And what I'm seeing is an intersection of data analytics and augmented or extended reality or even virtual reality so that we can actually live and extract the data. To Ramesh's point and Eileen's point, because let me tell you, Air Force has really leaned forward in some brilliant ways with their data strategy with Eileen at the helm. But when they look at visualizing the data and you now have data, information, and context to create situational awareness, that's really critical. The second key trend we're seeing is called data streaming or the data stream. You know, we talk a lot about data in different states, and we talk about data at rest, data in motion, and then we talk about the analytic dimensions in predictive or reactionary types of analytics. What I'm seeing is this data stream philosophy beginning to emerge. And what that is, Luke, is you think of the emergence of like a Google. I can search for what I want, how I want, when I want. It begins to bring together these different disparate data sources. And as I continue to refine my search, that data stream is getting more refined against the questions that I'm asking. And for Ramesh and the rest, and Eileen, we know, if you're looking at an intelligence mission, the key is ask 1,000 bad questions to get to that one really good question and answer to find that needle in the haystack of needles, so to speak. Yeah. And then the last thing, the last thing we're seeing shape up is this federated nature of data. No longer can we be the vacuum of data around the world. If I talk to my friends at Fort Meade, it's kind of striking. We're rounding out on a yottabyte of storage being deployed and yottabyte of data being provisioned. That is extraordinary when you think that every human being is now carrying almost 3.2 smart devices on the planet. Everyone's a data creator. So rethinking what we collect and when we collect it, but leaving data in its current state. And to Ramesh's point and Sanjay's point, it's the sovereignty and integrity of the information. So those are the real three things that we're seeing emerge across all agencies.
Great perspective across the ecosystem there, but you dropped yottabyte on us to the audience. So you're going to have to tell us what is yottabyte for those that might not know.
It is literally the current largest measure unit of storage that we have that exists in the English language. Wow! So think of it as over a million petabytes. Wow. Or exabytes, excuse me. It's pretty extraordinary, Luke. It's one of these things. It took a cocktail at the bar in about an hour to really round out exactly to comprehend as a human being just how much data that is. I mean, we're talking, if you were to start building a storage farm, that would be football fields in length. Picture building football fields from the East Coast into the Midwest. Wow. That's what we're talking about.
A lot of zeros on the end of that. Kaladar,
yes, sir.
Absolutely. How about at Equinix? A lot of data being computed there. You all are right smack in the middle of a lot of different things. I hear Equinix coming up often these days.
Yeah, hi, good afternoon, everyone. So we are seeing three trends. Let me quickly go over them. First one is the amount of data getting generated at the edge is increasing. So for example, an aeroplane will generate today around 4 terabytes of data per plane per day, and it's going to go up to 10 terabytes of data. So the historical way of moving data to compute will not scale. Instead, now we have to look at moving compute to where the data resides. So what we're seeing is that now people are basically leveraging container technology, and they're now packaging algorithms in containers, and then they're moving to where the data resides so that they can filter and process and analyze data at the edge. So that is what we call as distributed AI. Second key trend we are seeing is what we call as governance of this data. Increasingly, people are finding that even within a big organization, people, as many others have mentioned here, data is the currency, or it's a precious jewel. People are reluctant or hesitant to share it, especially raw data, with others.
Mhm.
So increasingly what's happening, people are finding that I do not have all the data that I need for this to create an AI model in-house. So I have to go either synthetically generate that extra data for training, or go to others and actually get data from external sources. So currently there do not exist, other than sending spreadsheets and emails, a real good way of sharing this data with each other. And that's where the notion of AI marketplaces or data marketplaces we're seeing. That's a second key trend we are seeing. And the third key trend we are seeing is that operational simplicity. What we are finding is that most organizations have few data scientists, and they're constantly hounded by various groups like marketing, sales, operations, product, etc. These few data scientists have to satisfy the needs of all these different people. And so that model doesn't scale. So instead, what we are looking at is no code or low code AI, by which you are giving the data analysis capability, moving that to subject matter experts, or making it easy for them, or making it easy for data scientists to support many more subject matter experts, so that then the entire impedance mismatch between subject matter experts and data scientists is slowly going over time. It's going away. And therefore, instead of a project taking many, many weeks before you actually resolve that, you can do that almost instantly or within a couple of days. So distributed and federated AI/data marketplaces, and then low code, no code for operational simplicity are the three main trends we're seeing.
You raised a good point about the data scientists. I've had numerous conversations with them over the years, and their number one complaint is, look, I don't want to take all this time to get to the point where I can simply do the job you asked me to do. So I think that rings true for every data scientist out there, no question about it. Dr. Greer, I would imagine that when we start talking about computing at the edge, you got to think about Intel and all the activity that is going on there. Give us the state of the state. Once again, you're in a unique situation there where you're seeing it across the spectrum. What do you see out there?
Thank you, Luke. Yes, we are seeing it across the spectrum. And I will tell you that our public sector customers especially are hearing the clarion call to take advantage of the data that they are collecting in very, very large environments and driving insight. One of the things that's absolutely unique about the public sector, though, is that while some people have equated data to oil or to bacon, in public sector and almost all the other domain spaces, data is not that. Data is actually people. And so what that is driving is a new focus on what the issues are around the people and the analytics that are being created. We heard people talk about the war fighter and the data scientist and all the other stakeholders. But when we look across all of these domain spaces, there are three things that stand out. The first is that there's an absolute need to think about how to upskill and reskill the workforce. Without being able to do that, all of these fantastic opportunities that artificial intelligence and data analytics offer just can't be realized. So we have a workforce and talent priority. The second is around transparency, ethics, and responsible AI. The trust factor and being able to use either zero trust models or provide transparency around some of the issues that data analytics provides is paramount. Without it, people are not going to be able to move to meet mission capabilities because they won't trust the environment under which the data analytics operates. And then lastly, while we are seeing a significant focus at moving data moving analytics to where the data is, when we look at public sector customers, they are absolutely focused at end-to-end solutions, cloud to the edge. They've already developed smart cloud capabilities, and now they are looking at edge analytics and edge computing as an adjacency that's going to need to not replace, but augment the environment that they already have. And so solutions are a premium when they are able to operate from cloud to edge. So upskilling of the workforce and data and talent, providing transparency, ethics, and responsible capabilities to this analytic capability for trust, and then creating not just siloed solutions, but end-to-end cloud to edge analytic capabilities.
Right. And, we all think about cloud and we think of sort of the big global clouds, but this emergence of, I'll call them these micro clouds, if you will, these constellation of clouds that are pushed down to the edge. Very interesting concept, along with, I never heard the concept of data as the new bacon. That's a new one for me. Definitely heard the oil one, not the bacon one though. Ramesh, let's talk about a specific program that you'd like to highlight where you all are taking data to the edge, analyzing it on the edge, etc.
I think one of the programs with the public program of record is Mars, which we are working on. It's a machine-assisted rapid repository system that's a foundational military intelligence system as we revamp. So one of the goals for us is to make sure data is available to all our consumers, all the J2 combatant commands, Air Force, Army, Navy, intelligence agencies, because we are both Intel and Defense, DoD, right? So we go across Title 10 and 50. And the underlying data fabric. So there is an evolution of platforms. Digital platforms are evolving, and DoD is building those capabilities to make sure we are always ready, prepared to support the nation, whatever comes our way. And as we are, as you probably know, we are embracing hybrid multi-cloud strategy. We have all the vendors, and depending on the mission needs, we will select what makes sense. But for our perspective, we are looking at the data fabric that would make sure we can consume and receive APIs. We will have ability to take a containerized application, deploy it to wherever it needs to go on the edge, whether it's a firefighting drone or whatever it is, right? We need to make sure that we can operate in contested environments when signals are jammed. So we have certain mission needs, and data is important, but so is the underlying platform, and the network and ability to extend those networks to the edge is equally important as we look at these future capabilities.
You really do have to have the whole subsystem put together in order to have that type of environment and have a primary, a secondary, and a tertiary capability to make sure these analytics are available way out there in these remote type environments.
And we do have it. So just so that you know, DIA currently offers the top secret network JVIX, right?
Yeah.
And that's something that's available to every single combatant command in the world.
Fantastic. Well, we're going to take a short break and we'll be right back. You're listening to the Federal Executive Forum on Federal News Network. Welcome back to the Federal Executive Forum on Federal News Network. We're talking about data analytics and data strategies at the edge. We're talking about specific programs we'd like to highlight here. Khalidar, I'm going to throw it over to you at Equinix. Give us an example of a specific program that you'd like to highlight for the listening audience.
Yeah, sure. We are currently at Equinix jointly working with Dell, Cameron's group, as well as a company called Lucid and Nokia and VMware, on a platform called Analytics Anywhere. And the whole idea behind this Analytics Anywhere platform is to allow different agencies or groups to share not just data, but also algorithms, share data and algorithms with each other. And they can do it in multiple ways. They can share data and algorithms in a federated way, where basically if an organization doesn't want to ship their raw data out, you can ship the algorithm to where that data is. So I would like everyone to remember the term federated AI. I think that is something that's going to be increasingly more and more AI will be distributed or federated. So that is something we do that. And the second thing we do in this Analytics Anywhere platform is we have an AI marketplace. So to basically double click on what Melvin was saying, what we allow for you to do in this AI marketplace is to actually bring data and algorithms from different parties and train and create a model. But more importantly, what we do is that we keep track of the lineage of what data sets were used, what starting point of other models, AI models were used as a starting point. And we actually keep track of that in a blockchain ledger so that subsequently you can go and say, okay, I'm using this AI model. What's the lineage of the data and other models that were used, so that then you can make sense out of it, so that you know exactly what this model, what biases it has, and explainability of how this model was created is actually provided. And the last thing we do in this is that no code, low code. So we have, as Cameron mentioned, it's a visual way of very quickly going and get insights, combining data from many different sources, and also automating the generation of many types of reports. So this platform actually supports that. So federated AI, AI marketplace, and a low code, no code enterprise grade platform, all of that has been packaged. And now this is available for various agencies to come and do a test drive. So they can kick the tires on this, check it out, and then we can take it from there.
Interesting concept there, and particularly the federated AI. Really like that that angle, and I'm sure that's being widely used these days. Eileen, how about the U.S. Air Force? Could you give us an example, either there or the Space Force, of a specific program you'd like to highlight?
Well, I want to go back to Melvin's investing in our people. And so one of the entities or programs that we have launched is a series of datathons to bring our airmen and guardian into the process to really solve some of our biggest challenges. And our first datathon, we partnered with the Department of the Air Force has an AI accelerator at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. So we have Airmen and Guardian there working with some of the smartest people in AI, and AFWorks, which is the innovation cell of our department. And together, our first problem set was a very manual process on scheduling aircraft. And our Airmen and Guardians, people that had never been assigned together, virtually worked together in over a 3-day datathon in a competition format, actually created a minimum viable product to automate that process with a 92% accuracy rate. That capability is in production today. So it gives us the opportunity to really take functional experts with data experts to really drive change and fuel innovation. We just wrapped our second datathon, which really was focused around how to really increase the quality of our data. And we're prepping for our third one right now. But it's really exciting because we get really innovative ideas from the field and it gets to a strategic level very quickly.
Interesting concept there, and I had not heard that term. And it sounds like, I think I heard you say virtually, right? Where you're tapping into all those minds across probably the globe and bringing them together virtually to create these products.
Absolutely. Our first datathon winning team actually had never been assigned together. We're in different time zones and they brought different expertise, but together their solution was super smart, innovative, and it helps us work more efficiently. So it drives performance.
Fantastic. Dr. Greer, you all, again, I think about Intel and I think about every microchip that's in every single aircraft and every other device across the globe. Can you give us an example of a program where you all are sort of pulling all these concepts, these techniques together to do this analytics at the edge?
Luke, Intel is very excited about our contribution to mission capabilities in the federal government. And there are three really great places where we've done fantastic work on behalf of the agencies and the mission. The first, of course, is in health and life sciences. So, we're still in a pandemic. We've been very, very focused on being able to drive COVID-19 detection, testing, and being able to help with the supply chain associated with the deployment of vaccines. And so our work with HHS and NIH has been instrumental in moving the needle and being able to make progress against this pandemic. The second is in the DoD. It's really great. We have been able to use our lessons learned from our Mobileye autonomous driving capabilities to support DoD investigations in autonomy and robotics. And the Army, as well as the Marine Corps, have been looking very closely at what kinds of advancements that we've been making in autonomy and robotics so they can be applied to support warfighter logistics and readiness. We're really excited about that. And then the last one is really around this concept of food as medicine. And the work that we're doing with the various agencies, USDA, FDA, and others, around how to improve the ability to distribute and get folks out of food deserts and get them high quality food, and turn the tide away from increasing the budget on remediation of health disparities after the fact, and start using food as a medicinal capability that helps drive healthy outcomes before they're resident inside a situation that can't be remediated. So, this idea around health, the use of our existing capabilities in autonomous driving to accelerate innovation in warfighter logistics and readiness, and being able to support food as medicine. These are three examples and use cases where we're really excited about our contribution to mission capabilities at the edge with analytics.
Outstanding triple example there of various very important activities. And we certainly thank you and everyone else for all the work on the pandemic and everything else that you're doing out there. Sanjay, you all have been on a tear over the last 18 months. I'm sure you have numerous examples. Give us one or two there that you'd like to highlight that you've been able to take some of this capability and bring it to the edge and perform the extended, new, evolving mission of the SBA.
Yeah, definitely, Luke. So let me start with a data sharing example. So as most of us probably know, under the Open Data Act, all agencies are expected to publish their data sets. And guess what I found out when I joined the SBA back in 2017? Those data sets were published as PDF documents. Now, if anybody who's done anything in the data world will very soon recognize that they are not machine readable. Yes, you've done a check mark exercise of saying, yes, we have published a data set, but it's simply not machine readable. So there are solutions in the marketplace today, something called CCAN, which stands for, it's an open source data sharing portal, Comprehensive Knowledge Archive Network. That's what the CCAN acronym stands for. But the simple English is it allows you to publish your data sets, and those are consumable via APIs. So it is now directly accessible via machine and able to consume the data, and also perhaps have the data refreshed. PDF documents become stale even before they are posted on the website. So that was one initiative that I did early on, because I think we've heard on the panels here, the ability of data by itself is less. It is more important when you share it and you cross it with different data sets across domains and see what correlations, if any, exist here. So that's one major initiative that I think I'd like to see more of in the federal world, where more and more agencies will publish their data sets in a machine readable format using things like CCAN as an example. Because ultimately we talk about public-private partnerships and leveraging the large data sets the federal government has. But unfortunately, if they are published in a manner like the PDFs, which is most organizations and federal agencies do, yes, they can be consumed, but that's not an easy consumption model. So that's one example, which I think is a very foundational example. Let me touch upon another example on visualization and analytics and visualizations. So data by itself is like zeros and ones, right? By itself, it's very difficult to follow and understand what it means. And when you're talking large data sets, ultimately it's the visualization that help you grasp what is it really conveying. So let me give a very, very simple example that we did, again, foundationally. We created the United States map, and we provided the ability, again, the map's available, as a data source. And now you overlay program performance data on the map. And so now you can visually see how your program is performing against how your program is performing against the sort of the geographical sort of layout. That is hugely illuminating. And the final piece I should add to that is the fact that most people on the Hill are not necessarily interested in zip codes and states. What they are interested in is my congressional district.
Sure.
So guess what? We created a congressional district map, and now we can put any program performance data overlaid on that congressional district map, and now you can visualize and see what activity is happening by congressional district. Again, very, very powerful things, very foundational things from my perspective, but they have a huge impact in the recognition of the value of data and what that can do and how it can be consumed. So hopefully those are pretty illuminating examples, Luke.
Absolutely, and be able to visualize that through various sets of lenses, I think, super important. Cameron, how about at Dell? A lot of different activities going on there across the community. Give us one example that you'd like to highlight.
Yeah, Luke, thank you. I'll tell you, I'll give you an example that'll hopefully take that data as bake, and I'll make you a BLT and give you some full service here.
Okay.
What you've heard across all of the constituents on the panel are these individual discrete capabilities that ultimately create mission value. But I'll give you one example. Ramesh, I promise you I won't break security from a classification, but Eileen, I love the Air Force. I gotta highlight this because it's brilliant. If you look at everything the panel's just talked about, Luke, what you've seen is segments of an overall community effort to really build a solution in what we call cloud adjacency. So let's walk this through. If you look at what the joint forces are doing with Joint All Domain Operations, or JADC2 as well, the Air Force really leaned into this heavily with their Advanced Battle Management System and ABMS and what's going on with high capacity backbone. We literally took every concept that is being discussed today, the federated analytics, the federated data out at the tactical edge. Literally, tactical edge in this case, Luke, can be air breathing platforms, flying platforms, base platforms, whatever the case is. And this is in operations today. And this is what is so humbling, but really prideful to serve in this capacity. We have data all around the globe that has to be analyzed in near real time, because Luke, we still can't solve for the speed of light, right? That's a science problem we're still all waiting to solve. But those analytics are being done in near real time. Those data outputs, that analytic output is being given to the combatant commanders and to the Air Force leadership in near real time so that they can make decision criteria. Because as we know, it's all about speed to decision, and the Air Force uses the OODA loop, right? Observe, orient, decide, and act. And that OODA loop is getting shorter and shorter and shorter. So we're creating decision advantage for not only the commanders, but going higher up the policy level for Capitol Hill and people to make better mission-based decisions in near real time. I'm very proud of that work because the type of data we're talking about, Luke, is in that exabyte, yottabyte stage. But when the Air Force needs it back in country, we can surgically now decide what data needs to be collected, and using the brilliant capabilities that Equinix brings, we can literally move that data from just about anywhere around the world back to the United States within hours, not days. We're not, yanking hard drives out in Kandahar or any of these places, shipping them back, and it's a 3-month, before the analysts get post-mission analytics. We're talking the same day, same week. And this is all because of the great work that the Air Force pioneered with Kessel Run, the tanker refueling application that Eileen talked about, that we're now getting analytics distributed at the edge. So very proud of that fact. But what it illustrates, Luke, is in the cloud adjacency space, it's going to take all of us to rally as a community to support that mission outcome, which is so precious.
Cameron, that's a fantastic use case. And since you cited the Air Force, let's go back to you, Eileen, and talk about challenges, right? As we're looking at bringing these capabilities way out there on the edge, very powerful analytics, a lot of data being collected. What are the challenges that you find yourself facing there?
I'm going to go back to what Melvin said. There is a true investing in people, and there's a true war on talent. So upskilling our workforce is a critical component, and we're doing that in the department, whether it's a graduate certificate program at our Air Force Institute of Technology, which started as a pilot, whether now we're in year 2 of that program, or short courses, long courses, our academy actually offering data science as a major and minor to help our soon to be commissioned cadets into our officers corps, bring that capability into all mission areas. But it's not about one thing, it's about building that pipeline of talent moving forward, intern programs, etc. We have to be all in to develop that talent throughout the component, or it impacts our mission. So we're making those very targeted, laser focused investments in our people. So I like to say people first, mission always. It's really about getting our people piece really aligned up, not just today, but the pipeline moving forward is critical.
Right. I call it the new arms race, if you will. Kalidar, how about at Equinex? Top challenge that you see you see folks facing out there?
Yeah, I agree with Eileen. I think educating workforce is definitely something which is important, and it's a challenge right now. There's a shortage of data scientists. And I think one thing I would like to add is that increasingly more and more people are beginning to use open source libraries and also pre-existing models that others have built. So going forward, I think getting a handle on that with respect to cybersecurity threats will be a challenge, because people can actually skew your models based on the type of data they use to train it. And so I think that is an extreme area that we are definitely worried about. The second thing that we are worried about is its governance. Technology can help, but ultimately, end of the day, there have to be templates that allow various organizations to share the data and have SLAs associated with the quality, and how do you arbitrate when that quality is not there when you're sharing this data. So the whole framework for having governance model for allowing people to share data also, I believe, is not quite there. And now you're beginning to see different organizations coming up with these governance models, which I think will be very valuable. So those are 2 areas, definitely, I would say we are seeing challenges right now.
Integrity of the data, very important. We're going to take another break, and we'll be right back here. You're listening to the Federal Executive Forum on Federal News Network. Welcome back to the Federal Executive Forum on Federal News Network. We're talking about data analytics strategies and technologies at the edge. And we're actually talking about challenges right now, which are always plenty of those. Sanjay, can you give us your top challenge that you're dealing with right now as you embark on this journey?
I'd say, Luke, it's data sharing. And let me give a little example of what it means from our SBA context. The last year and a half, obviously, we were, as we were running the nation's largest economic recovery initiatives, we were trying to do data sharing with the Treasury for things like do not pay, with IRS for tax transcripts, with Census for census tract data. And we ran into numerous challenges in terms of being able to access the data, policy requirements, and or latency requirements, and scalability. So that's we've been able to overcome some of them, but the volume at which we were looking at and the speed at which we were looking at, we couldn't really access that. The other sort of a related item I would quickly want to talk about is ownership. this is a common discussion I have with program owners from program offices, and we talk about, and the first answer I get back is, well, this is my data. And my first correction on that is, well, I'm sorry, this is not your program office data, this is SBA data. So let's at least make sure we are sharing it at the SBA level and not keeping the data silos at a program office level. So those two tend to be, in my opinion, at least from my perspective, the largest challenges.
And very important ones. It sounds like you're starting to get a handle on how to combat that and overcome them. Dr. Greer, top challenge that you're experiencing there at Intel.
I love all of these challenges. They are really, really relevant. We are really trying to take a look at a very large challenge, which has got an umbrella capability associated with it. And it falls basically under this umbrella called security. We're trying to find ways to make data more secure so that people can trust it, especially as we move from this large data set concept that we've been talking about to a much smaller, hyper-relevant capability that is going to drive more accuracy in data algorithms, securing the algorithms themselves. And you heard a little bit about that focus in the Analytics Anywhere capability. Physical security at the edge is important because we are not sitting behind a really secure environment at a data center. So being able to physically secure that space and being able to drive mechanisms that are tamper-proof, cybersecurity, and being able to understand the new threats and vulnerabilities that compromise algorithmic decision-making. And then lastly, the one that's new is probably this one around machine versus machine, because it seems clear that the bad guys are determined to use the kinds of analytic capability that we've created against us. And so in order to be in a better position to respond in an automated fashion in some cases, be able to isolate quickly compromised systems, being able to notify humans in the loop that need to be able to take immediate action on vulnerability capabilities and threats. These are all under this basic umbrella of cyber. And while it may seem like an anti-pattern for Intel, because our AI strategy starts with software, it is an important area for us to be able to investigate and be able to contribute to, because we can't trust and use systems that aren't secure.
Very good point that you're raising there. A couple of points there, particularly the machine to machine, and of course, integrity of the data, so important. Ramesh, how about at DIA? Top challenge that you're facing there as you get involved in bringing this analytic capability to the edge?
I would say the biggest challenge is talent, right? Talent is the most important challenge, I think, especially for all of DoD, not just DIA. I mean, I'm on the DoD Executive Steering Group with General Groen and Undersecretary of Defense for R&E. So we look at overall what the country needs, and talent is number one, I would say, followed by speed and scale, right? As we move from counterterrorism to strategic competition, we need to make sure that we can move fast and we can scale fast and we have the platforms in place to make sure we are building on top of those newer digital platforms where data can be shared and consumed in any direction based on the policies that is applicable to that specific mission need, depending on which partner we are working with. So I would say speed and scale is very important, and technologies like cloud, AI, and quantum maybe in future will enable some of those things. But to do all those, I mean, technology is important, but to do all those, the most important ingredient is talent. So once we have the right people in the right place, other things will happen.
Bottom line, at the end of the day, the raw material is the talent, and several of you have brought this up. Cameron, top challenge that you see facing us from the Dell perspective?
Yeah, Luke, I'm probably going a little bit of adjacency here with you, but I think it's culture. You know, when you add all of these different specific ingredients up, security, talent, speed, agility, you know, Luke, the pandemic taught us one thing, that when you challenge us as a country, we rise. It's really that simple, right? We're very proud of that fact. And we learn rapidly how to move with agility, work with a risk management security strategy, knowing that no environment's perfect, but we know how to manage risk in the environment, and then access to the talent and the people we need to actually go execute on mission. Luke, you and I've talked about this philosophically in the past. One great example, commercial companies, a lot of them now are not requiring college degrees in the technical professions. Why? Because we're seeing kids, I look at my daughter through elementary school and junior high, kids who code, right? We're seeing that talent is naturally being bred without these formal educational tracks. Now that's good and bad, right? There is always a yin and yang to it, but unlocking that creativity and that next generation of talent pool and fostering that, I respect the framework that's in place for the government today, but we learned in moving fast during the pandemic that there are a few things we just need to challenge current thinking in a very positive and healthy way. And that is all about culture. And it's about culture of agility, safety, and moving fast with adoption.
And right, unlocking that talent early and unlocking all the talent, right? From a diversity standpoint, I think it's another thing we're really starting to recognize and see that blooming in lots of different ways, which is very exciting. We're going to wrap it up here with this last question that we always like to end with, and that is to paint a picture of the future, right? What's it going to look like out there in 2 to 3 years? Dr. Greer, we're going to start with you at Intel. Not so much what's in the Petri dish, but what can we expect in this edge analytics space over the next 2 to 3 years?
We will see a focus on hyper-relevant data. We will see an immense focus on diverse thought in the development of AI solutions, because if it's not diverse, it's not ethical. And we will see a strong desire to get to next generation AI. We've heard this discussion around quantum, but we are absolutely bullish on neuromorphic computing, and we've invested quite a bit of our resources in the understanding of how to use brain-inspired capabilities to drive silicon architectures that allow us to do hyper fast, hyper relevant, very low power, and very small data set analytic capabilities at the edge. So you'll see a strong focus on neuromorphic computing as things move forward in the next 2 or 3 years.
Wow, it sounds like the future is right around the corner. Quite frankly, the future is here. Very interesting, and we look forward to hearing more about that as that all progresses. Kaladar, how about at Equinix? Tell us what it looks like over the next 2 or 3 years. What do you all have in the hopper there?
Right. I think the main thing we're going to be seeing is what I call as a democratization of AI. Increasingly, I think we have to take AI to the masses rather than, it won't scale otherwise. We won't be able to train enough people to understand the AI algorithms and how they operate. So I think this happens at various levels. So one is definitely at the data science or the subject matter expert. We have to make it easy for them to basically consume AI. The second area is the IT support folks. I think increasingly these AI, the training part of AI, training and inference, the training part of AI, the machines are like increasingly 30 kilowatt per rack or higher. Traditional data centers are built 10 to 15 kilowatts per rack. So we cannot expect the IT folks in various organizations to be able to support this next generation AI hardware. So increasingly, you will see these organizations outsourcing that to colos or other data center companies. Otherwise, it's very hard for the IT group to actually manage this kind of AI infrastructure. So I think democratization. The last one is basically the packaging of open source and pre-existing models and AI developer for hire, like in Kaggle in Google. So those are all the trends which are going to increasingly push people to reuse existing data, existing software, and even developers online. So those are 3 trends towards democratization of AI that I'm seeing, going to see in next 2 to 3 years.
It's almost like a crowdsourced capability of AI there. Interesting concept. Cameron, how about at Dell? What's it look like, right around the corner, just over the horizon there?
Yeah, I think you're going to see a convergence, Luke, of several key trends. We talk about gamification a lot. What that really means is the interaction or immersion with data becomes a little bit more relevant for the user to be able to digest and understand in an augmented reality type of sense. And I think when we think of data at the edge and data analytics, you're going to see geolocated relevance to you and a personalized sense or personalization of that AI, Luke. What I mean by that is we all carry smartphones that we can tell where you're at in a geolocated world. Being able to bring that phone up, look through your camera lens, and look at the different aspects of data and analytics about where you're at that are relevant based on your geolocation. So imagine your phone knows you're English speaking, but you happen to, let's say, be visiting Germany. And you're, I don't know, Luke, maybe we find ourselves at Oktoberfest maybe, and we need to be able to order a beer with, a lovely lady that's going to serve that to us. Being able to bring your phone up, know how to translate based on where you're at, and know what's relevant from a situational awareness. It's this convergence of artificial intelligence, analytics at the edge, the data with geolocation services, because it's all about in that mission, it's got to be relevant at mission speed, right? And so you have to know where you're at, what you're doing, and what type of information you need to be effective.
Right, that use case about pulling data from Kandahar and having it almost instantly available, just game changer type of capability there. Super
Exactly.
important. Ramesh, how about at Defense Intelligence Agency? What's that going to look like over the next 2 to 3 years? If I'm an analyst out there, an end user of any sense out there, what type of capability can I expect to have over the next 2 to 3 years?
I think we are in line with most of the industry in general. I mean, we have some specific missions, but there is digitization happening, evolution of new digital platforms. The business models are changing, operating models are changing. And from my perspective, personally, as a CTO, I'm pushing hard for edge AI. So we are relevant for the mission, right? Ability to operate in contested environments, things like that. So we are definitely extending our workloads to the edge, ability to integrate with the upcoming JADC2 platforms, whether it's Overmatch or ABMS, whatever it is. So our foundational military intelligence data is available to our warfighters when required, anytime, anywhere in the world. And we have high assurance networks to support those missions. So it's data for sure. It is technologies like edge AI, and it is embracing the platforms like cloud to build these future capabilities and making sure it's available to everyone, everywhere when required, based on the policies and guidelines set forth by the government.
The integrity of that environment and the reliability of the environment really important. And you highlighted those various activities that are in place to ensure that capability is available. Sanjay, how about over at SBA? Once again, you all have been on a tear there over the last couple of years. There's a heightened expectation, right, as we come into this, emerge into this new booming economy. What's that going to look like? What can a small business owner expect over the next 2 to 3 years?
Yeah, certainly great idea on that dimension there, Luke. So really 3 or 4 areas from my perspective that I envision. First and foremost, I envision an increased amount of data sharing and data collaboration amongst federal agencies. We are the Small Business Administration, but we rely on many other agencies to deliver our services. And we can be much more efficient and effective in our delivery of those services and more targeted, or being able to serve our underserved and traditionally underserved communities in a much better fashion by leveraging that data. The ability to connect disparate data sets and draw insights and be able to create correlations, that is, I think, an amazing feature that is lying dormant in my view. It's not a technology issue, it's just a policy issue that will be addressed. Number 2, I anticipate that data as an asset will become increasingly valuable. So what does that mean? It means we'll be investing more in data management, data products, and everything associated with data. Third, I think we will be looking at what I call is applying analytics and visualizations in an inline manner, as opposed to what I call is post-processing, meaning today we collect the data and then we analyze it and then we figure out what it meant. But I think we have the technological capability today to do inline processing. So let's say the data streaming is happening for cybersecurity as an example. We do not have to wait to collect the data and then be able to come back and analyze it in the next day or next week or something. We will have the ability to do inline processing. And finally, I think the cybersecurity world, from our perspective, is going to dramatically change because we'll be increasingly leveraging data. in our ability to secure the environments and secure our information and broadly, protect the larger community at large. So that's sort of what I envision.
A lot to think about there, a lot to look forward to there. And we really appreciate that and are excited about that. Eileen, if I'm a freshly minted cadet coming out of the academy, I guess one thing, you're going to try to turn me into a data scientist, it sounds like. But beyond that, what can they expect to see? What can they expect to feel? What's that environment look like as they look around and head out into the world?
Well, I like to say that data is going to be part of their core DNA. It's how they do their mission every day. So it's not just about accelerating technology to have the best tools and capabilities, but it's accelerating the culture change. So today I work with my colleagues across the military services. So I work with Tom Cicela at the Department of Navy. I work with David Markowitz at the Department of the Army. And of course, David Spirk, who is the DoD CDO. Together, we work to really make sure we're making data visible, accessible, and trustworthy. And so I think that we're going to see a culture of collaboration, but really driving that culture change, where I see a day where we don't talk about data individually, because it's really what we do every single day. And so it's just part of the mission.
Just sort of embedded into the fabric. Well, I'll tell you, I really do appreciate everyone's time today. And I want to thank the guest for taking the time out of their busy schedules to join us for this program, and for everything that you all do to fight the good fight every single day. I'd like to thank our sponsors for supporting us on this show. I'd like to thank the good people here at Federal News Network that make our program so successful and enjoyable. And most of all, I'd like to thank the listening audience out there that tune in every single month. You're listening to the Federal Executive Forum on Federal News Network.